I'm going to be reading from 3 different sources today. Stick around to find out what they are. This is from the Improvement Era, August 1936 edition. It's an editorial titled Warning to Church Members. With great regret, we learn from credible sources, governmental and others, that a few church members are joining directly or indirectly the communists and are taking part in their activities. The church does not interfere and has no intention of trying to interfere with the fullest and freest exercise of the political franchise of its members, under and within our Constitution, which the Lord declared, quote, I established by the hands of wise men, whom I raised up unto this very purpose, close quote, and which, as to the principles thereof, the prophet, dedicating the Kirkland Temple, prayed, should be, quote, established forever, close quote. But communism is not a political party nor a political plan under the Constitution. It is a system of government that is the opposite of our constitutional government, and it would be necessary to destroy our government before communism could be set up in the United States. Since communism, established, would destroy our American constitutional government, to support communism is treasonable to our free institutions, and no patriotic American citizen may become either a communist or supporter of communism. To our church members we say, communism is not the United Order, and bears only more superficial resemblance thereto. Communism is based upon intolerance and force. The United Order upon love and freedom of conscience and action. Communism involves forceful despoliation and confiscation. The United Order, voluntary consecration and sacrifice. Communists cannot establish the United Order, nor will communism bring it about. The United Order will be established by the Lord in His own due time, and in accordance with the regular prescribed order of the Church. Furthermore, it is charged by universal report, which is not successfully contradicted or disproved, that communism undertakes to control, if not indeed to proscribe, the religious life of the people living within its jurisdiction, and that it even reaches its hand into the sanctity of the family circle itself, disrupting the normal relationship of parent and child, all in a manner unknown and unsanctioned under the Constitution, constitutional guarantees under which we in America live. Such interferences would be contrary to the fundamental precepts of the gospel and to the teachings and order of the Church. Communism, being thus hostile to loyal American citizenship and incompatible with true church membership, of necessity, no loyal American citizen and no faithful church member can be a communist. We call upon all church members completely to eschew communism. The safety of our divinely inspired constitutional government and the welfare of our church imperatively demand that communism shall have no place in America. Signed, all 3 members of the First Presidency of the time, including David O. McKay. This section is titled Comment on Communism and is found in the 1936 Improvement Era August edition as well, in the same section as the last. The foregoing statement on communism by the First Presidency of the Church has been received thankfully and with fervent approval both within and without the Church by Americans who love America, typical of the resultant reactions in an editorial which appeared July 8, 1936 in the Salt Lake Tribune, a newspaper published by interests not of our church. At the suggestion of President Heber J. Grant, the Improvement Era's editorial-in-chief, the editorial referred to is here reproduced in full. And the editorial title is named Enemies Within Our Gates. This is the text. There is both reason and logic in the recent pronouncement of the Mormon Church against communism. The statement is more than a religious document because it warns of a menace that drives at the very foundations of American life. Communism has nothing in common with the Mormon Church or any other, this government or any other, this people or any other. It is an enemy to religion, to freedom, and to civilization. Quote, the warning of the First Presidency is timely and to the point. It distinguishes between a communistic enterprise, and free political discussion within the bounds of the Constitution. It recites forcibly that communism is not freedom, but serfdom, not the exponent of new political rights for the people, but the enemy of existing governmental guarantees to them. The statement says, quote, communism is not a political party nor a political plan under the Constitution. It is a system of government that is the opposite of our constitutional government, and it would be necessary to destroy our Constitution before communism could be set up in the United States. Since communism established would destroy our American constitutional government, to support communism is treasonable. Close quote. Communistic preachment, first of all, is a means to an end. It is an essential step in the overthrow of established government. Once the people are disarmed, there is no turning back. They become slaves under a rule of force, which tolerates no intolerance or resistance. Be it peaceful or violent, Russia is the outstanding example of an enslaved people. The roseate promises held out to accomplish the revolution are forgotten. The fanciful ideals are repudiated, and the rule of a designing leadership is made absolute. Established communism endures no criticism of its course. Such activities as the Mormon Church warns against would be punishable as treason in Russia. Only the other day, Joseph Stalin declared that the Soviet Union will avoid any electoral system under which any party could defeat the government and take its place. Why should the American people be more tolerant of the enemies within their gates? Why should they hold out the guarantees of the constitutional government to men and women who seek to destroy them? Why should not allegiance or subscription to principles conceived and designed to destroy the Constitution be sternly punished? We do not abandon our homes to the burglars. No more should we tolerate the activities of those who seek to destroy the foundations of our homes and our civilization. Constitutional government. Spies and traitors to the trust of our government are handled without gloves. Why should any more consideration be shown to those who would destroy the government itself? Close quote. Doctrine and Covenants, section 98. Verses 1 through 15. Verily I say unto you, my friends, fear not. Let your hearts be comforted, yea, rejoice evermore, and in everything give thanks. Waiting patiently on the Lord for your prayers, have entered into the ears of the Lord of the Sabaoth, and are recorded with this seal and testament. The Lord hath sworn and decreed that they shall be granted. Therefore, he giveth this promise unto you with an immutable covenant, that they shall be fulfilled, and all things wherewith you have been afflicted shall work together for your good, and to my name's glory, saith the Lord. And now verily I say unto you concerning the laws of the land, it is my will that my people should observe to do all things whatsoever I command them. And that law of the land which is constitutional, supporting that principle of freedom and maintaining rights and privileges, belongs to all mankind, and is justifiable before me. Therefore I, the Lord, justify you and your brethren of my church in befriending that law, which is the constitutional law of the land. And as pertaining to law of man, whatsoever is more or less than this cometh of evil. I, the Lord God, make you free. Therefore ye are free indeed, and the law also maketh you free. Nevertheless, when the wicked rule, the people mourn. Wherefore, honest men and wise men should be sought for diligently, and good men and wise men ye should observe to uphold. Otherwise, whatsoever is less than these cometh of evil. And I give unto you a commandment, that ye shall forsake all evil, and cleave unto all good, that ye shall live by every word which proceedeth forth out of the mouth of God. For he will give unto the faithful line upon line, precept upon precept, and I will try you and prove you herewith. And whoso layeth down his life for my cause, for my name's sake, shall find it again, even life eternal. Therefore, be not afraid of your enemies, for I have decreed in my heart, saith the Lord, that I will prove you in all things, whether you will abide in my covenant, even unto death, that you may be found worthy. For if you will not abide in my covenant, ye are not worthy of me. This reading comes from The American Heritage of Freedom by Ezra Taft Benson. I'd encourage everybody to read the entire document, especially the first 14 revelations that he refers to herewith. In light of these prophecies, there should be no doubt in the mind of any priesthood holder that the human family is headed for trouble. There are rugged days ahead. It is time for every man who wishes to do his duty to get himself prepared physically, spiritually, and psychologically for the tasks which may come at any time, as sudden as the whirlwind. Where do we stand today? All over the world, the light of freedom is being diminished. Across whole continents of the earth, freedom is being totally obliterated. Never in recorded history has any movement spread its power so far and so fast as has socialistic communism. The facts are not pleasant to review. Communist leaders are jubilant with their success. They are driving freedom back on almost every front. It is time, therefore, that every American, and especially every member of the priesthood, become informed about the aims, tactics, and schemes of socialistic communism. This becomes particularly important when it is realized that communism is turning out to be the earthly image of the plan which Satan presented in the pre-existence. The whole program of socialistic communism is essentially a war against God and the plan of salvation, the very plan which we fought to uphold during the, quote, war in heaven, close quote. Up to now, some members of the church have stood aloof, feeling that the fight against socialistic communism is controversial and unrelated to the mission of the church, or the work of the Lord. But the president of the church in our day has made it clear that the fight against atheistic communism is a major challenge to the church and every member in it. During the General Conference of the Church in October of 1959, President David O. McKay, in discussing the threat of communism, referred to W. Cleon Skousen's book, The Naked Communist, and said, quote, "I admonish everybody to read that excellent book," close quote. He then quoted the following from the flyleaf, quote, "The conflict between communism and freedom is the problem of our time. It overshadows all other problems," close quote. Conference Report, October of 1859, page 5. The fight against godless communism is a very real part of the duty of every man who holds the priesthood. It is the fight against slavery, immorality, atheism, terrorism, cruelty, barbarism, deceit, and the destruction of human life through a kind of tyranny unsurpassed by anything in human history. Here is a struggle against the evil, satanic priestcraft of Lucifer. It can be called, quote, "a continuation of the war in heaven," close quote. In the war in heaven, the devil advocated absolute eternal security at the sacrifice of freedom. Although there is nothing more desirable to desirable to the latter-day saint than eternal security in God's presence. And although God knew, as we did, that some of us would not achieve this security if we were allowed our freedom, yet the very God of heaven, who has more mercy than us all, still decreed no guaranteed security except by man's own freedom of choice and individual initiative. Today, the devil, as a wolf in supposedly new suit of sheep's clothing, is enticing some men, both in and out of the church, to parrot his line by advocating planned government-guaranteed security programs at the expense of our liberties. Latter-day Saints should be reminded how and why they voted as they did in heaven. If some have decided to change their votes, they should repent, throw their support on the side of freedom, and cease promoting this subversion. When all the trappings of propaganda and pretense have been pulled aside, the exposed hardcore structure of modern communism is amazingly similar to the ancient Book of Mormon record of secret societies such as the Gadiantans. In the early American civilization, there was no word which struck greater terror to the hearts of the people than the name of the Gadiantans. It was a secret political party which operated as a murder cult. Its object was to infiltrate legitimate government, plant its officers in high places, and then seize power and live off the spoils appropriated from the people. It would start out as a small group of dissenters, and by using secret oaths with threat of death for defectors, it would gradually gain a chokehold on the political and economic life of whole civilizations. The object of the Gadiantans, like modern communists, was to destroy the existing government and set up a ruthless criminal dictatorship over the whole land. One of the most urgent, heart-stirring appeals made by Moroni as he closed the Book of Mormon was addressed to the Gentile nations of the last days. He foresaw the rise of a great worldwide secret combination among the Gentiles, which, quote, seeketh to overthrow the freedom of all nations, all lands, nations, and countries, close quote. Ether 8:25. He warned each Gentile nation of the last days to purge itself of this gigantic criminal conspiracy which would seek to rule the world. The prophets in our day have continually warned us of these internal threats in our midst, that our greatest threat from socialistic communism lies within our country. We don't need a prophet, we have one. We need a listening ear. And if we do not listen and heed, then, quote, the day cometh that they who will not hear the voice of the Lord, neither the voice of his servants, neither give heed to the words of the prophets and apostles, shall be cut off from among the people, close quote. D&C 1:14. The prophets have said that these threats are among us. The prophet Moroni, viewing our day, said, quote, wherefore the Lord commandeth you, when ye shall see these things come among you, that ye shall awake to a sense of your awful situation, close quote. Ether 8:24. I think it's important to note that communism is simply a word that is used to describe when the freedom of man is eroded by those who would seek to assume power through force. And the reason I want to point this out is because it's easy to think that communism would never come to America. But based on what we've just read, I posit that it's already here. And it is time to do, as the prophet Ezra Taft Benson has said, to awaken to our awful situation and assume the responsibility, even the commandment that he has dictated herewith, that it is a priesthood responsibility, just as it was a responsibility of all loyal servants to God in the preexistence to fight anything that would oppress the freedom of mankind. Gadiantanism is among us already, in every sense that has been described in the Book of Mormon. There are organizations among us, specifically with secret handshakes, secret oaths, penalties of death for defection, who operate after the manner described in the Book of Mormon as a coordinated, conspiring organization to overthrow the freedom of man. They openly worship Lucifer and are engaged in blood sacrifice and other abhorrent activities that most of us could never believe were actually going on. These things are among us already. I implore you to seek out the truth in your own heart through prayer of the things that have been presented today, and to uphold the cause of freedom in your daily life, in deed, thought, word, and example. May God uphold you and bless you as you strive to sustain the cause of freedom. And may God bless America.